The morning light was just beginning to pierce through the tranquility of the suburban landscape as Anna stepped out of the house. Her movements were calculated, gentle so as not to disturb the stillness of dawn. The air was fresh, with a crispness that contrasted sharply with the turmoil inside her. She closed the door softly behind her, a symbolic gesture marking the end of her secret escape that had lasted through the night. The quiet street offered no judgment, merely existing in its serene watchfulness. Anna had found herself more often in Michael's home, a place that had become her refuge from the emotional desolation of her own marriage. Each visit was a step deeper into a world where she felt wanted, understood, and alive. Michael's house, quaint and warmly decorated, reflected his attentive and caring nature. Here, she felt a stark contrast to the increasing coldness she experienced with Rick, her husband, whose once affectionate glances had cooled into indifference over the years. The affair with Michael wasn't something Anna had sought out with intention. It was more of a slow burn, a connection that had ignited from shared laughter, long talks, and a mutual understanding of each other's loneliness. Michael saw her, really saw her, not just as a wife or a distant partner in a failing marriage, but as a woman full of desires, fears, and dreams. Each stolen moment with him was a mix of profound joy and piercing guilt. Anna knew the risks, the potential devastation it could cause, yet the emotional fulfillment she gained seemed, in those moments, to outweigh them. Walking to her car, her steps faltered as she noticed a figure leaning against it, his posture tense but unmistakably familiar. It was Rick, his expression unreadable in the dim light. The sight of him jolted her heart into a rapid beat, her mind racing to piece together how this moment came to be. Had he followed her? Had someone seen her and told him? The possibilities spun through her mind, each more unsettling than the last. Rick's presence there, waiting in the cold morning air, was a silent accusation, a physical manifestation of the secret life she had tried so hard to keep from him. His eyes met hers, and in them she saw a storm of emotions: hurt, betrayal, anger. It was the first time in months that she had seen any passion in his gaze, though it was not the kind she had longed for. "I thought I might find you here." Rick's voice broke the silence, his words cutting through the quiet morning. His tone was calm, but carried an undercurrent of raw emotion that Anna had not heard before. The simple statement was enough to confirm that he knew. He knew everything. And with that knowledge, the fragile framework of their life together had been shattered. Anna opened her mouth to speak, to explain, to apologize, to do anything that might mend the gaping wound that had opened between them. But no words came. The truth was too complex for simple apologies, and the air between them too charged for excuses. Rick continued, each word deliberate. "We need to talk, Anna. Not here, not now, but soon." His calm was disarming, his decision to discuss things further a small mercy in the face of the chaos that was surely unfolding. As Rick turned and walked back to his car, Anna was left standing alone, the cool dawn no longer peaceful, but chilling. The weight of what had occurred, and what was still to unfold, pressed heavily on her. She knew that the coming conversations would be some of the hardest of her life. The truth about her feelings, her desires, and her loneliness would have to be confronted, not just by Rick, but by herself as well. As she drove home, the early morning light began to warm the earth, the street slowly coming to life as the world woke up around her. But for Anna, it felt as though a long, indefinite night was just beginning. The road home had never felt longer, each mile a stretch of road paved with regret, and the impending challenge of rebuilding what her heart had broken. The stillness of the morning contrasted sharply with the turmoil brewing as Rick waited outside. The revelation of Anna's infidelity hung heavily in the air, transforming the quiet street into a silent witness to the collapse of their shared life. As Rick watched Anna approach, a mix of emotions battled within him: anger, betrayal, immense sorrow, all threatening to overflow. Once home, the distance between them in the car felt insurmountable. Anna, grappling with the weight of her choices, knew this was the moment to address the chasm that had widened between them over the years. She wanted to explain, to express her feelings of loneliness and neglect that had driven her into the arms of another, but words felt inadequate to bridge the gulf of hurt. Rick broke the silence first, his voice a mixture of pain and resolve. "We need to talk about what this means for us, for our family. We can't just pretend nothing happened." His statement laid bare the stark reality they both had to face. The comfort of routine and denial was no longer an option. They were at a crossroads, and every choice from here on out would redefine their relationship. Anna took a deep breath, gathering the shards of her courage. She admitted to the affair, not just as an act of betrayal, but as a symptom of deeper issues they had both ignored. "I've felt alone for a long time," she confessed, her voice trembling with the vulnerability of her admission. "What I did was wrong, but it didn't happen in a vacuum. We've both been so distant, so disconnected from each other." Rick listened, his face a mask of stoic attention, but his eyes betrayed a flicker of understanding. The acknowledgement of their mutual neglect didn't excuse her actions, but it did begin to frame the discord in a light of shared responsibility. This was not just the unraveling of one person's mistake, but the culmination of years of emotional abandonment on both sides. The conversation that unfolded was fraught with emotion. Accusations and defenses rose and fell as they navigated the painful history of their relationship. They discussed moments where they felt let down by the other, times when one's needs were ignored by the partner's self-absorption or indifference. Each confession peeled back layers of long-simmering resentment, exposing raw, unhealed wounds. Despite the pain, there was a profound breakthrough in being able to voice their unhappiness. For years, unspoken grievances had built walls between them. But now, in the ruins of their trust, they found a brutal honesty that had been missing. It was painful, yet purifying, as each hard truth cleared the way for potential healing. As dawn turned to day, the initial shock and anger gave way to a tentative exploration of what could come next. Could they find a way back to each other, rebuild on the ruins of what had been shattered? Or was this the end of the road, a sign that their paths were meant to diverge? They considered their options: counseling, a trial separation, a renewed commitment to working on their relationship. Anna proposed that they seek professional help, not as a quick fix, but as a commitment to really understand and address the underlying issues that had led to her infidelity. "I want to make things right, not just for us, but for myself. I need to understand why I made the choices I did," she said, her resolve clear despite the uncertainty of their future. Rick agreed to consider therapy. "I can't promise that this will work or that I can forgive you completely," he admitted, his honesty both chilling and comforting. "But I'm willing to try, for our sake and for our family." His decision was not rooted in the assurance of reconciliation, but in the hope of understanding, perhaps finding a way to coexist, whether together or apart. The road to healing was uncertain and fraught with potential setbacks, but it was a path they agreed to explore together. The realization that their marriage might still end was a somber one, yet facing this possibility together was a testament to the depth of their shared history, a history worth at least attempting to honor with efforts to mend. The silence that had once marked their interactions, now broken, gave way to a cautious dialogue. As they moved forward, the quiet was no longer a barrier, but a space for reflection, for the difficult but necessary conversations that might one day lead to forgiveness, or at least to peace with the outcomes of their choices. This was not just the end of a chapter, but perhaps the beginning of something new. Whether together or apart, defined not by betrayal but by the courage to face and mend their fractures. The moment stretched between them, thick with the weight of unspoken pain and the sharp sting of betrayal. Anna, her voice faltering under the intensity of Rick's gaze, struggled to articulate the loneliness that had driven her into another's arms. She spoke of feeling invisible in her own marriage, of crying out for attention in silent ways that went unnoticed, each day widening the gap between them until it had become a chasm too vast to bridge alone. Rick, absorbing every word, felt as if the ground beneath him had shifted. The woman he loved, the partner he thought he knew, seemed like a stranger in that instant. The revelation shook the foundation of what he believed their life together was. "What did our vows mean to you?" he asked, the hurt evident in his voice. It was a question loaded with years of shared memories, of dreams built together and now perhaps irrevocably broken. The air was heavy with the enormity of the moment. Anna's admission, while a relief in its honesty, did not bring the solace she had hoped for. Instead, it laid bare the painful reality of their disconnection, a truth neither could now deny. Rick's reaction, a blend of disbelief and sorrow, mirrored the turmoil that had been simmering beneath the surface of their daily interactions, now brought into stark relief. Rick's disappointment was palpable, his words a mirror to his soul, stripped bare and raw. "How could you?" he continued, each word a reflection of his shattered trust. "Was it worth it? Was anything we had worth fighting for to you?" His questions punctured the already fragile air, leaving a silence that was heavy and uncomfortable. Anna, overwhelmed by the flood of emotions, realized the depth of the pain she had caused. It was not just the act of infidelity, but the realization that she had stepped so far out of the bounds of their relationship to find what she felt was missing. She tried to explain, to make him understand that it wasn't about love or lack of it, but about feeling lost and alone even when together. But the words sounded hollow, even to her own ears, insufficient to heal the wounds that were now open and raw between them. Rick, needing space to process the avalanche of emotions, stood up abruptly. His movement was a physical withdrawal that mirrored his emotional one. "I need some time," he said, his voice a mixture of anger and despair. The simple declaration was a line drawn, a temporary barrier as he tried to protect the remnants of his heart from further damage. Left alone, Anna sat amidst the debris of her choices. The silence of the room echoed the loneliness she had felt for so long, which had driven her to seek comfort elsewhere. But now, that same solitude was a prison, reflecting back her regrets and the gravity of her missteps. The hope for reconciliation seemed distant, a flicker of light swallowed by the gathering darkness of uncertainty and remorse. In those moments, Anna confronted the full impact of her actions, not just on her marriage, but on herself. She had reached out for something to fill the void, only to find herself more lost navigating the fallout of choices that could not be undone. The path to healing, to mending what had been broken, whether with Rick or alone, loomed daunting before her. It was a path fraught with challenges, requiring more courage and honesty than she had ever mustered. As the day bled into night, the house felt emptier, each room a reminder of a past filled with laughter and love, now overshadowed by the pain of betrayal. The journey ahead would be hers to make, a journey toward understanding, forgiveness, and perhaps redemption. It was a path that would start with her, with the decision to face the consequences of her actions and to rebuild from the ashes of her mistakes, no matter how daunting the prospect might seem. As dawn broke over the horizon, bringing with it the light of a new day, it seemed to also usher in a moment of clarity. After a night filled with turmoil and restless thoughts, there emerged a painful yet necessary determination to face the wounds that lay open, exposed by the harsh truths of betrayal and emotional neglect. In the solitude of the morning, the silence provided a stark canvas against which the events of the past few months were vividly painted, each brushstroke a decision made, each color a feeling experienced. In the cool, early light, the thought of reaching out to Rick felt both daunting and essential. The decision to mend what had been broken was fraught with uncertainty, but the alternative, a future clouded by regret and what-ifs, was something far more unsettling. Picking up the phone, the weight of it felt amplified, each ring echoing in the stillness of the room until Rick's voice, cautious yet expectant, broke through. "Rick, I've been thinking all night." The words tumbled out, a mix of nervous energy and resolve marking them. I'm truly sorry for the pain I've caused, and I understand if you can't forgive me, but I would like us to try and work through this. Maybe see a counselor together? The proposal hung in the air, a lifeline thrown in the tumultuous waters of their relationship. Rick's response was measured, the hurt still resonant in his voice. I don't know, Anna. This isn't just about forgiveness. It's about whether we can ever go back to how things were, or if we even should. His words were not a refusal, but they weren't an acceptance either. They were a reflection of his own struggles, a mirror to the complexity of the emotions at play. Of course I understand, Anna replied, her voice a mixture of hope and apprehension. I don't expect things to return to how they were before. Perhaps they never can. But maybe we can find a new way forward, together. We owe it to ourselves to at least try, to see if there's something worth saving. Her own words surprised her with their sincerity and the depth of her desire to make things right, not just for the sake of the marriage, but for her own peace of mind. The conversation that followed was a tentative dance around the delicate pieces of their fractured relationship. They discussed logistics, not commitments. Finding a counselor, setting a time for their first session, each practical step a small stitch in the fabric of their shared life, attempting to mend the tears with cautious optimism. After hanging up, the silence returned. But it was different now, filled with a tentative hope. The decision to attempt reconciliation through therapy was a small beacon in the fog of their strained relationship. It was an acknowledgement that while the path to healing would be arduous and fraught with challenges, it was a path they were willing to explore, armed with professional guidance and a newfound understanding of the stakes involved. This commitment to therapy was more than just a logistical arrangement. It was a symbolic gesture, a mutual acknowledgement that their relationship, with all its imperfections and past hurts, still held something precious. It was a recognition that healing would require more than just time. It would need effort, patience, and a willingness to confront uncomfortable truths. As the morning unfolded, the light grew stronger, casting long shadows across the room, shadows that seemed to echo the lingering doubts and fears. Yet, amidst these shadows, there was a glimmer of something else: resilience. The kind of resilience that comes from knowing the road ahead is paved with difficulty, but choosing to walk it anyway because the possibility of rediscovery, of forging something new and perhaps more profound, is worth the journey. This decision, born out of a night of reflection and a morning of difficult conversations, marked the first step towards a future undefined. It was a future that promised many things: challenges and revelations, setbacks and breakthroughs. But above all, it promised the chance for something that had been lost along the way. A true partnership built not just on the remnants of what was, but on the potential of what could be. Embarking on the journey of healing and reconciliation, the initial steps towards mending the rift began with tentative, often awkward attempts to reconnect. The therapy sessions, initially marked by silences heavy with unspoken thoughts and emotions, gradually evolved into open dialogues where vulnerabilities were exposed and the deep-seated issues that had led to the fissures in their marriage were confronted. These sessions, while challenging, provided a structured space where Anna and Rick could express their feelings without fear of immediate retaliation or dismissal. During these meetings, the couple unpacked layers of misunderstandings and resentments that had accumulated over the years. They spoke of missed moments of intimacy, of times when one felt neglected when the other was too absorbed with work or personal interests. They explored the impact of their communication styles, how Anna's tendency to withdraw emotionally when overwhelmed and Rick's habit of dismissing issues he deemed minor had created a cycle of hurt and detachment. As the weeks turned into months, the therapy provided them not just with insights, but with practical tools to rebuild their communication. They learned to listen actively, to respond with empathy, and to express their own needs without diminishing each other's feelings. They set aside time each week to connect, initially just recounting their day without interruption, which slowly evolved into sharing their deeper fears and desires. The progress was not linear. There were setbacks, moments when old grievances resurfaced, when the pain of the betrayal felt as raw as it had in the beginning. During these times, the temptation to retreat into old patterns was strong. Rick would sometimes become cold and distant, and Anna would feel the old urge to seek comfort elsewhere. But with the foundation they were building in therapy, they now had the tools to recognize these patterns and the courage to break them. They learned to use these moments as opportunities to delve deeper, to understand the root of their reactions, and to support each other through the discomfort. Rebuilding trust was perhaps the most arduous part of their journey. Rick struggled with the shadows of doubt that Anna's affair had cast over their relationship. To rebuild trust, Anna took proactive steps to be transparent about her interactions and feelings. She shared her phone and social media with Rick, not as a permanent solution, but as a temporary measure to reassure him of her commitment to transparency. Meanwhile, Rick worked on forgiving Anna, not just in words, but in how he interacted with her, choosing to believe her efforts were genuine, choosing to see her not just for the mistake she had made, but for the person she was striving to become. Forgiveness became a daily practice, a choice to move forward, to rebuild something new and potentially more robust than what had existed before. Through it all, the moments of connection, small at first, like enjoying a quiet coffee together in the morning or a walk in the park, began to weave a new tapestry of their relationship. These moments, simple yet profound, reignited a sense of partnership, a reminder of why they had fallen in love in the first place. Finally, there came a day when Anna and Rick, walking hand in hand through the small garden they had started together, felt a renewed sense of commitment. It was not a grand gesture or a moment marked by dramatic declarations, but a quiet acknowledgement of their journey and the future they were choosing to build. They understood that the road ahead would still have its challenges, but they were committed to traveling it together, fortified by the lessons they had learned about love, trust, and resilience. This new beginning was not the erasure of past hurts, but an acceptance of them as part of their story. A story they were writing anew together with honesty, courage, and a deepened love that had been tempered by the trials they had overcome.